A&O started selling sinks 14 years ago. We started selling the granite guys before they knew they wanted to sell sinks. Our problem was not, do you want to buy our sink, it's do you want to buy any sink. Back then, sinks were $300–400 on average. Once we got some market share, in came a lot of the guys, the imitators, with cheaper and cheaper sinks, and then, heaven forbid, here came the free sink. Granite guys started giving away a free sink. And when you're giving away a free sink, what's the most important thing about a free sink? How cheap you can buy it. So we're going to talk a lot about this sink and what makes it better. Again, I don't expect you all to remember it. We do have a product knowledge on our page, anosales.com. If you go to the product knowledge page, it will be videos like this, this presentation. Maybe if this turns out well, maybe this one exactly, for people who want more information. And we get calls all the time from people who have been on our website and want to know who sells our stuff. Okay. This is a traditional drawn bowl. Drawn bowl means you press it. Okay. See, already I forgot. This is my low-tech iPad. These sinks are pressed in a press, but it's called drawing because when you make a stainless steel sink, if you can see, you start with a square piece of steel and you draw the bowl. What you're doing is you're drawing in the steel to make the bowl. That's where the steel for the sides come from. When we make this sink, we cut it off and weld two together. You can see the weld mark here. You'll see at the top and the bottom. You don't see in the middle because of the paint. Okay. What that does is it makes all four sides of this the same thickness. When the cheaper sinks became the norm, and frankly, I don't know of anybody else that's making individually welded bowls except the very high-end $700, $800 sinks. But you can see when they drew this bowl, see they're drawing it in just like you saw in the other picture, but there's no place to draw that from. Okay, so what you're doing is you're stretching and stressing that part of the sink to get enough steel to make it. That makes this sink, no matter what you start with, 20, 22 gauge, much thinner, and quite often you get stress and stretch marks, particularly here and here. It can be anywhere in the bottom of the sink, but you get them right there. Sometimes they show up with ripples, waves, imperfections. Okay. In addition, we stopped talking about gauges on sinks. Our sinks start with South Korean 16 gauge steel. Don't ask me why, but South Korean 16 gauge is about 7% heavier than Chinese 16 gauge. There is no international standard for it. So the most important thing about a stainless steel sink is it's made from 304 stainless. 304 stainless has 18% chromium and 8% nickel. Chromium makes it shiny. The nickel makes the finish last longer. When your guys pull out some of the old drop-in sinks, they're kind of yellow-brown. They look old. That will not happen. I mean, you have to clean this sink. It's not self-cleaning. But the 304 keeps it shiny. Now, 304 stainless is appliance grade. So it will match your appliances from day one. Many of the sinks today are made from 301 stainless, which only has 16% chromium. So from day one, it's grayer. It does not match your appliances. I had a friend of mine runs a cleaning service out of Chicago, and she called me up, can you come to, I'm about to lose one of my biggest customers. They just got a new granite top, and I can't clean the sink. And I went out there, and I was talking to her, and I said, where'd you get the sink? She said, oh, I got it free with my granite. I said, well, you got what you paid for. You got 301. It was great, because she had a great big Sub-Zero stainless steel refrigerator next to it, and I said, you won't clean it. She said, well, put one of yours in. Well, we can't put one of mine in because once you cut the hole, all you do is put another one of the same kind of sink in. So 304 is very, very important to your customer. Now, how many of you, when you see a sink, you see all those rubber pads, usually diamond-shaped rubber pads on the bottom. And they always, in the literature, they brag about their rubber pads. The more pads, the cheaper the sink, because they're making up for thinner or cheaper steel. Most of those are made out of recycled tires. What's cheaper, recycled tire or good stainless steel? The answer is obvious. If, in addition to being cheaper, I don't know if you ever had it where somebody called up and said, hey, the bottom of my cabinet underneath my sink smells like rubber. They will give off that odor, saying, they'll give off the odor. So instead of the cheap recycled tires, underneath here is a foam back pad, a foil back pad. If you ever take off the side panel of your car, there's a foam bag rubberized pad, sound pad on the inside of the car door to cut down the road noise. That's what's underneath here. Then on top of this, we put this foam thermal pad. I don't know of anybody else in the industry that has this thermal pad. It does keep the water a little warmer when you are washing dishes, but on New Year's Eve, when you fill it full of ice and beer, it won't condensate as much. Okay. When we were doing, when Jim was negotiating with the factory, most of our sinks had a white underpaint. We took, what happens is, not that Travis ever scuffs a sink, but when you do, it scuffs gray. Okay, so Jim brought in a sink and said, this scuff, and that's the color we want the underpaint. So this underpainted with the scuff gray. Now that means absolutely nothing to the end product, except it looks better when you're carrying it in. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
All sinks, in fact, all parts of your plumbing, the sink, faucet, pipes, all those things need to be certified to meet ASTM 112.19.3. You've probably heard of Uniform Plumbing Code. This sink is certified to meet Uniform Plumbing Code and International Building Code. If most sinks, 8-10 years ago, we made an issue out of it because all these new cheap sinks were not getting certified. Frankly, most building inspectors don't look for it. In 8 states I cover, I have 2 that look for it. But if you get into trouble, if you get that customer that's looking for things to pick on you, and the attorney finds out that you don't have a sink that meets building code, it's one more thing for them to pile on. Everybody said, well, it doesn't matter. And all of a sudden, all the other sink companies start coming up. We've seen, there's one company that makes a great big 3-color sticker that puts on the side, and it says certified quality. That means absolutely nothing. It has to be certified by an independent agency to meet UPC. So that we've also seen there's a smaller sticker. It says meets UPC standards. That's them telling you they don't want to spend the money to meet UPC standards, so they're telling you it does anyway. Well, it can't meet UPC standards because one of the things is it has to be done by an independent agency. So in addition to the sticker, there's see, the UPC has to be stamped on there. See the stamp?
Oh, there.
Okay. In addition to that, it's got to have the model number of the sink, and it's got to have the logo or the name of the manufacturer right on the sink, so the building inspector could verify that it meets. And you can look up on, IAPMO is one of the agencies that does UPC certification, and they will police that religiously. So if you get a sink that's not certified, they're going to go after the guy. So certification, is it mean anything to the customer? Maybe not, but it does. In the long term, you want to make sure that you're giving the products that meet building codes. Okay. These sinks, in addition to being independently, these are all machine finished. So this finish is going to be the same time after time after time. Whether it's going to be, if you order sinks 6 months from now, 2 months from now. A lot of the sinks are very inconsistent. They're hand finished, particularly if you buy them in April and May. If they're manufactured in April and May in China, because a lot of the Chinese New Year, for 3 weeks, everybody goes back to the farms, and they don't all come back. So in the first couple weeks of the new year, they're training the guys to, and it's a skill. Not all, they can't all do it. So finish is real important. So in the end stroke, 304 stainless certification, the finish. We talked about how we make them, Our 18 gauge is heavier than what a lot of the guys sell online as a 16 gauge. Because part of it is because we start with heavier steel, and the second thing is when you're doing this, you've got twice that much steel. It's light about that much steel. Why do you care if it's heavy? You care because it's quieter when you run the water, particularly when you put a garbage disposal on it. All our sinks are rated for 1.5 horsepower garbage disposal. Garbage disposals are getting bigger and bigger. Sometimes if you go to the big box stores, you read the side of the sinks, it'll say that it's rated for 0.5 horsepower garbage disposal. Let me tell you, almost nobody's putting 0.5 horsepower garbage disposal anymore. In fact, we were at a show a couple weeks ago in Nashville, and a guy came up to our booth and he says, "Can your sinks take a garbage disposal?" We said, "Of course." He said, "Oh," and then we went into our whole pitch about 1.5 horsepower. All this. He said, "Well, my granite guy gave me a free sink, and he said it won't take any garbage disposal, much less." So,
what a deal!
Absolutely. Now, when we come to this, is our brochure. The brochures are not this big. This is just for the purpose of the presentation. These are 16 gauge sinks. These are all our shapes. We also have an 8 gauge, 18 gauge. Quite frankly, about 98% of our sales are the 16 gauge. Because the price difference is not that great, and if you're going to do a good sink, you might as well do a really good sink. We do not have a big single in the 18 gauge. Again, that's because of the garbage disposal. We think it's too noisy. And it's noisy on ours, it's even noisier on the other brands. We do have 4 single bowls, vegetable bowls, bar bowls, whatever you want to call them. Those only come in 18 gauge. The reason they only come in 18 gauge is the biggest, first of all, you don't usually put a garbage disposal on those, and you don't get the noise because it's not as big a surface.
So if they did put a garbage disposal in, it'd be all right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And you're not, you're especially on the big single, you got all that surface
Sure.
to resonate the noise. We've never had an issue with those.